Welcome back to the Daily Edge. As always, I'm here with my brothers TJ and Todd. And today we're going to talk about the body. We all are involved in, I would say, quite a bit of physical activities. And there's obviously a lot of discussions we've had around grit and things, pushing ourselves, but we don't focus a ton on recovery. I think we're all nursing some injuries right now. It's been a little bit of a slow season, at least for me. I think TJ's still probably doing 60 miles a week plus. So we're going to talk about a little bit about recovery and the body and stuff's going on. We'll probably talk about some other running related things, but who wants to kick us off?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for me, that's very relevant. I've been dealing with a right leg injury for about 15 months now. It's the first time that I have had an injury last this long. I'm not sure if it's age or it's the miles adding up, but I'm in a completely different spot. I pushed through it to train for Boston. And as you mentioned, we spend a lot of time talking about setting goals and hitting these goals. And we probably don't focus enough on the time where we aren't, in a position. I'm running about 5 to 10 miles a week right now. I'm doing Orange Theory for strength work because apparently that's what after about, I would say 9 months, I got more clarity on exactly what this is. A lot of misdiagnoses and a lot of failed attempts to figure out and to work through it and resolve it. It's been a really long,
What are you referencing
journey.
when you do this? I don't know if everybody knows.
So I thought for a long time, I had the brief story on this is I thought I had shin splints, and it turned out, and then I thought maybe it was tendonitis. It turns out, I forget what the terminology. It is some sort of tendonitis. I think maybe it's tendinosis or tendinopathy, where the collagen in the tendon is actually breaking down. Is like the analogy they use is like a rubber band that's been sitting in the drawer for 10 years and doesn't really stretch. And so the only way to like rebuild that back. So what happened is I shut it down for a long time after Boston. I pushed through and I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm done. Like, I'm just going to let it heal. And it got worse. So with tendinopathy, that's what happens. It gets worse with inactivity, as you might imagine. So the way to get around this is through strength work. So I have been doing 3-4 times a week for probably a month now, different strength work that focuses on this particular tendon. The nice thing is I have been able to run a little bit. I've been doing more Orange Theory, but I've had some shoulder issues. I've had some toe issues. It's just a season for me where I am not, from a goal perspective. Yeah, I'm not excelling in any form or fashion. I'm just hanging on for dear life, frankly.
Well, here's a question I'm going to ask you. Let's talk about this because I get this question a lot. I deal with younger runners as well as older. Just being somebody that people know I run, so they come to me for asking questions. One of the things that I did research on a while back was where to start. Because if you don't know any better, a lot of people are like, yo, I need to go to my family doctor, right? And like that's all they know. They know their family doctor. They hit their family doctor up. Why don't you guys both tell me how your approach has changed to dealing with these injuries as you've gotten deeper into the fitness world? And I will say that I probably know where you're going to go with this. And there is definitive proof that there are particular individuals that are able to diagnose these types of injuries way better based on their profession. So why don't you talk about like how your guys' perspective has changed as you've gotten deeper when it comes to how you handle these or who you go to when you have questions?
I mean, I'll speak up real quick. The first thing I wanted to say is it's part who I go to. Jacob and Mike Stevens with
Apollo.
Yeah, Apollo Sports Precision Labs, and Jacob with what's the name? Tempo Sports Rehab. Both have been awesome for me. But here's the reality. I'm going to be real transparent. For most of my time, I would go in to see those guys, and they would say, hey, do these exercises. And I'd be like, yeah, cool. I'm not, I'll do the exercises. There's no way in hell I'm doing the exercises. Just like fix me. If I got to come back 2 or 3 times and you got to do your thing and then my ass is going to be out there and I'm going to run, I'm not doing your exercises. And this is the first time that didn't work. Like, and so that's where I went to Jacob and he was like, hey, this is what I think. Do these exercises. And I'm like, yeah, cool. I just need to like switch shoes, get some, I've always done it. I've gone to fresh shoes. I've kind of mixed up the mileage a little bit, laid off. And then like, I've always turned a corner and just youth or whatever. Like, and this time it didn't. And then I went to Mike Stevens and same thing. Like Mike was able to work on some things. I did the exercises for like a week. It felt better. I'm like, okay, I'm good. And it just hasn't worked. So for me, it's been the humility of like, okay, you can't just like will this stuff away. You actually now have to put in the work. You have to listen. You have to do the exercises. After 15 months, after 12 at that point, it's like, okay, I guess I've got to start paying attention. Now, some of that, again, was not understanding exactly what it was and having the confidence that the exercises would fix it. But
yeah, I think, growing up, it was always going to a traditional doctor that would just tell you to rest. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like back in the day when you had a computer problem, what'd you do?
Restart it.
Restart it, right? And that was the rest, I think, does heal lots of things. And naturally it would. But when you got to where what we were doing, it was like, we need someone that can help us fix the problem, but not, actually take time off. There's different ways to approach it. So I would agree. Mike Stevens and Crow have been great the times that I went to them. I'm having some lower back issues right now on my left side, and it all started with pickleball. This summer I'm playing lots of pickleball, and I now I got a shoulder issue too, actually, but I was, just hitting the ball, and I just noticed, man, it's just like, and then that on top of the running, and then, it's been hurting the last couple of weeks, and then I went to the golf tournament and played 72 holes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like came back, and I've just been in a lot of pain. So I went to the chiropractor, and he did some quick x-rays, and I've got like a compressed spine. Like mine doesn't get bigger, it gets smaller, and my hips are rotated. He puts me in a electroshock thing, kind of like.
Mm-hmm. I have that at the house.
And so I get a little bit of that, but like I've always kind of had my left hip slightly rotated in front of my right, and which I think I've realized my running gait has always been, I've always kind of got on the outsides. I'm trying to run more on the ball of my foot, which is a different thing. So I'm more cognizant now of like maybe my form. Interestingly enough, I was talking to Phil Dodick, who's up to 80-mile weeks, I think. And when we were together, he was doing his stretches. He goes, I basically run all the miles. He goes, but I do all the stretches that I was told to do as if something were hurting. He had a thing between his legs. He's going back and forth. He's doing all the preventative strengthening stretches that they give you when you're hurt. He's doing them now while he's running so that he doesn't get hurt. So I think those supporting muscles are super important in finding specialists. I mean, Crow and Stevens, they both helped. I don't know, you probably are their number one referral source, but they've helped 30 plus runners in our community get through different injuries. But I think to Todd's point, it's like there's more to, like, if you do the same thing over and over enough, you're just going to have problems.
I mean, you chime in here. It was a few months ago, you chimed in, shared kind of your longer term injury issue. Like, where are you at? Are you relatively healthy? What are you still fighting? And what have you just gotten used to?
I was running with somebody the other day, Keegan, and he's in his early 30s. He's 32. He likes to use the dad joke. I'm 32. But when we run, every now and then he'll get a twinge and he'll make this like exaggerated movement. We'll be going and he'll be like this and be like, oh, it was a knee. And I'm like, oh, well, we'll see in 15 years. I would make a jump if it wasn't a knee. There are things that I'm used to. My back, depending, gets tight when I get up, but I think that's anybody. It's close to 50 if you've been sitting for a couple of hours. My RA is not flaring. I've had some issues with this hand, but it's gotten better. Recently, strangely, my HRV has doubled, which is crazy. I've been in the 30s for, 2 years now, And then all of a sudden in the last like week, I hit 62 the other night, which for those of you that don't know, that's the measure of the time between your heartbeats. And it typically is representative of how well your body's recovered, which is kind of crazy for me. So everything right now is pretty good.
Obviously the HRV is a very short-term thing, but in terms of the flare-ups and the RA, have you modified any sort of lifestyle to accommodate that?
Not in particularly. I will try to be more cognizant of my food if something feels a little off, but not really. I don't know why, and we can talk about that a little bit, why it happened, when it happened, or whatever.
I mean, 'cause you had a massive flare-up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could dive down that rabbit hole. It'll be a bit of a tangent, but we'll get back to this part. Yeah, so it was November of 24. I've been having issues with my feet, and I'd been having issues with my feet for years, and it was one of those slow progressions that you don't realize it until it's just that little. What do they say? How do you eat a whale or an elephant one bite at a time? And all of a sudden, so over probably a 2-year period, my feet got increasingly sensitive to the point where I could only wear certain types of shoes with certain size toe boxes, because if there was any pressure on my feet, it was a mess. And my feet would have to warm up before I do a run. So it'd be a mile or two until they felt normal. To fix that, I jumped into the peptide world. I'd been hearing about peptides for years. A couple buddies of mine got into it in the early 2020s, like 2021-ish. And you started to hear about BPC 157 and TB 500 and the Wolverine stack. And then, with because essentially all of the weight loss stuff now are different versions of peptides, tirzepatide, Ozempic, testosterone, et cetera, that all do different things. I have a buddy, Sasha, who is really well researched in all of those peptides. But anyways, I decided that I would do side injections for BPC 157. One of the things about this part of this industry is that it's unregulated, and there are reasons. And I know there are some changes that have happened recently with the FDA, but the thought always was that peptides weren't mainstream and or legal because they are naturally produced chemicals in the body that can't be patented. So big drug companies couldn't make a bunch of money off of these particular things. So I'd heard enough. Sasha had told me at one point he had tried one of those too. Again, there are a number of ways that you can ingest some of them. TB 500, I think there's pill form, but again, it gets into bioavailability and how much of that are you actually absorbing when you take it. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just go intravenous. Like, this is obviously the most direct way from a bioavailability perspective to get it into your bloodstream. So I started BPC 157, shooting it in my feet. And that sounds like I'm on heroin or something, but and back then when I did this, you had to buy it typically off of you go on a forum or a handful of forums and do your research and find reputable sites that you could buy this stuff from, where they had a lot of reviews and a lot of experience. And then you buy it with Bitcoin. And so I would get vials. I happen to have some Ethereum left over from years ago when we were doing NFT stuff. And I would just convert it over to Bitcoin, and I'd buy my BPC 157, it'd come in, and I'd do injections. And again, I don't know if this was coincidence or not, but shortly thereafter is when my body fell into complete disarray.
How close was this? Days, weeks?
It blends, right? But this is November, I think, that I started it.
Okay.
I actually could tell you the day I started it. Let's see. This is going to be, let's see here.
By the way, just while you're looking that up, so peptides, there were 7 of them that went to review on the board of the FDA. Apparently, all of the FDA staff, like the scientists, wrote papers not recommending the approval and/or I think the way this is framed is like the expansion of the availability of these things. or the start of that process, so to speak. But the committee overruled what the scientists recommended. They went in a different direction. But the issue is the FDA had appointed 8 new voting members on June 29th, 2026. 8 of the 14 panel members, they were appointed under Robert Kennedy, and several run or work for clinics offering peptide treatments. So there's some financial interests, some business interests in peptides so people are a little skeptical on the outcome of that, but just interesting that now it's going to take a year or so.
Is it because Robert Kennedy is for them, or because you think he has financial?
I don't think it had anything with Robert Kennedy. It's just the people who Robert Kennedy appointed were involved on the FDA board, were involved in some capacity, just naturally are probably going to be pro.
Which is like this double-edged sword, because the people that know the most about it are the people that have been deep in it and that have brought its market. There's one in Texas.
If he put them on there because of that reason. Like he appointed them because he wanted it to go through.
Certainly a point of contention, but I think it's still like a 12-month process to like make it more available or expand or whatever. So in 2027, maybe there will be an opportunity to prescribe it in certain scenarios. But anyway.
So I started taking these on October 18th.
Okay.
I think they came in. I remember, this is a fun tangent since we're here. I was going that night to see the comedy show Kill Tony with Faust at Butler University. And my peptides had come in that afternoon, but I had to leave right away. And I was driving around to pharmacies at midnight after the show trying to get syringes because my feet hurt and I wanted to, again, a heroin addict. And finally found them, but they don't sell those. They don't just give out syringes because of that. And so finally made it work. I think the next day at CVS, the overnight Walgreens was not having it in Carmel. So anyways, it was like the 19th of October, I guess. And then by the end of the year, I couldn't walk well at all.
Did it help immediately, like early on? Did you think, oh, this is working, and then it fell apart, or you didn't really notice anything and you had taken it then for multiple months?
I didn't notice anything massive. There may have been a day or two in there, a week or two in there that were like, oh, maybe this is a little better. It's not worse. And again, I'd always attributed soreness, but again, it was back to how do you eat an elephant? It was like, as I got towards, I remember going to California and being just in like constant 5 out of 10 pain, like sitting down. And the only time I felt okay was when I was moving. And then I remember Christmas at your house and I could barely walk down the stairs. And then I got diagnosed in January. And I always tell the story. I remember taking prednisone that first night, 20 milligrams, and I woke up the next morning and it was all gone. It was like unbelievable. I was so inflamed. My rheumatoid number was like 10x what a normal person should be, like even high for people that have autoimmune diseases. But since that time, I've been able to keep it under control, change some different medications around and about. So I don't know, I've heard plenty of stories from people who have taken it, whether it's the Wolverine stack or BPC 157 by itself, and have had reactions similar to what I experienced when I took like a standard over-the-counter prednisone, or not over-the-counter, but prescribed prednisone, that have had these miraculous, and there's countless people online that have had rotator cuff injuries or other things that have taken these and had wonderful experiences with them. For me, it didn't happen. What's crazy now is that like the proliferation of peptides has gotten to the point where like there's something for everything. I think there's one out there that tans you. Like seriously, that you can take and it
progress.
Well, yeah. It's kind of, and the crazy thing is that the mad scientists out there, the people that like understand this, I think that's where we have to start giving credence, is that there are a lot of YouTubers out there that we would all say are just as much an expert in something based on exposure to the topic as somebody who studied at university, where they're like the Derek from More Plates, More Dates. He doesn't have a doctorate in biological chemistry or whatever, but he was in the bodybuilding world. And those guys that are meticulous and that are concerned with their health while at the same time trying to be competitive bodybuilders. Gorilla Mine, that's his drink. And it's the most efficacious energy drink ever made because he understands I'm not just going to put stuff in here that are buzzwords. Like, we'll say hypothetically creatine's a buzzword, right? I'm going to put creatine in here. I'm going to put this, and this because people who are even fitness adjacent know that these things are supposed to help you. And then I'll sell my drink saying it contains all these things. It's like, no, if I'm going to put it in there, I'm going to make sure that there's enough of it in there and that it's being delivered through a mechanism that the body absorbs. And there's actually a measurable beneficial effect from whatever it is I'm doing. And so he's had phenomenal success. But again, this is a guy who learned through forums, who learned through research and reading scientific papers and medical journals and all these things. And so, that I think is where society's scared, is that all of or most of the knowledge of as it relates to peptides are people in that space, not traditionally trained doctors.
That's interesting. So I wanted to run something by you guys, if you guys have heard this or if you kind of fall into this camp. So one of the things that I've been talking a lot with Mike when you're in there for an hour and you guys, you kind of talk through certain things. And one of the things that Mike said is a lot of what's done in that physical therapy world, certainly there are things like this that require specific exercises to rebuild but for a lot of your random injuries, or where you kind of get inflammation or maybe something just gets a little out of whack, a lot of it is just getting blood flow to that area. It's like a mental thing where if they get out the scraper, or you might be doing some dry needling, or you might be doing different things, just like massaging or things, that a lot of it is honestly just centered around the simple concept of getting enough interaction and engagement down there to get your brain to send signals send signals that promote blood flow to that area, which is ultimately what heals it. Has that been your guys' understanding, or do you kind of buy into that disposition? I just thought that was fascinating.
I think it would make sense. I think the success that you've seen, because a lot of them people will call placebo, like leg sleeves. You've had leg sleeves forever, like the Normatex. And people would say that, there's no definitive scientific proof. It's all placebo, yada, yada, yada. But again, it may be a situation where they're measuring something in specific as opposed to, hey, those, because we use those during GA 5K and they seem to help pretty significantly. And so it's like the body, that squeezing, if that does push the body to move blood into your legs or whatever, then I could see how it would be beneficial that way. I think so much of it is mental, and not just mental in a sense that, like that, but mental in really being dialed in and paying attention to your physiology. You mentioned being conscious of how you're running and how you do any exercise for that matter. I think the older you get, the more you have to pay attention because you can get sloppy really quickly. And when you do have something wrong, whatever it is you're doing, a lot of times subconsciously you favor it, and then it just gets worse because they'll tell you, the physical therapist will tell you the whole chain's connected. I mean, going to John Grant, you turned me on to John, and John was kind of the first person that opened up this world of physical therapists. I could have a problem somewhere up the chain, and John's like, your big toe's not flexible enough. It's your great toe. And I'm like, what do you mean it's my great toe? I have a hip problem. Like, no, it's your great toe is not flexible enough, so you're not getting through on your stride, and you're compensating out here, and then that's driving up here, and then that's why you're feeling,
it's amazing
tension in your IT band. And so, we're lucky to kind of jump off to the point you said earlier, not to derail your question, but we're lucky that USATF is headquartered in Indianapolis, and that for years and years and years, our physical therapists, especially the ones that had worked at St. Vincent, were the official physical therapists for USATF. So they would travel across the country with some of the best athletes in the world and work on them. Like these high performance athletes whose livelihoods depended on their ability to perform on a regular basis. So like I would, and I alluded to it before you guys answered my question earlier, but like there was a study done on diagnosis of injuries from family doctors, orthopedic doctors to physical therapists, and physical therapists in that specific niche had the highest propensity to correctly diagnose an injury. And that's another thing, I know there are more affordable physical therapists out there. I know there are more affordable plans, but it's like finding somebody who understands your specialty. You have to realize that where the money is from a physical therapy and an orthopedic perspective is in the aging population. Most of those physical therapists and orthopedists are working with people who are elderly, who have had a fall, who have, yada, 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 versus, and you touched on this, and I think this is important to know. I think a lot of people avoid getting things diagnosed like they avoid going to the doctor. I don't know. I don't want to know what's wrong because it's going to impact my lifestyle significantly. I don't want to go to the doctor because they're going to tell me I can't run anymore or do this. But there are people out there like these physical therapists that are like, okay, let's put a plan together. And there are also good doctors out there that will do it too if you find the right one. But that will put a plan together that may reduce you a little bit. And if they have to stop you for a while, they will. I've heard of Mike stopping 2 people out of the 30 I've referred to him. But there are people that will put together a plan that will allow you to maintain doing whatever it is you love while getting better at the same time.
Yeah, I've never been stopped by either of them. And I've probably had a dozen injuries at different points in times, and that's been great. And they've been right. But I think, doctors, they're way more interested in just you getting better, and it's like the reboot thing. It's just stop.
Well, and you'll find, at St. Vincent specifically, there are 2 doctors. There's 3, but this is in Carmel. There's 3 you'll see. One is new, so I don't know her, but the other 2, one will shut you down almost every time, and the other won't. And the other is a competitive triathlete, and you go in there and you see her, and she's going to be like, hey, and they'll present it in such a great way. Like, hey, here's the deal. We can do this or we can do this. Meaning you can kind of run through this and we can test and we can A/B test to figure out what's wrong. Or I can get you an MRI tomorrow and we can know for sure what's wrong. So depending on what kind of person you are and how you deal with things mentally, they'll take these different approaches. But you got to find the right doctor. And so ask around when it comes to injuries. Ask people who know what's up, who have been through it, that may know somebody who's an expert in the arts of physical therapy.
To jump back in, the other thing besides getting blood flow that I found is just inflammation. It seems like that's the other kind of culprit causing. I think that's what's going on in my back. I got inflammation in there, which I found the cold plunge to actually be good for that. The last couple of days I've got in, which has been good. It tends to just take it out. Now it's not a permanent solution, but for aches and pains, I think the cold plunge obviously reduces inflammation. You don't have to get crazy with it. I'm not in 32-degree water. I think even 50-degree water is probably good. So inflammation seems to be a lot of my issues. The other thing I wanted to comment on, you talked about like being aware, and I thought I saw a document or a YouTube on Wim Hof where like they could inject like the flu and he could keep it.
Yeah.
Like mentally he could say, okay, flu, you're staying here. Like it wouldn't spread throughout his body.
That's true.
Was that?
Uh-huh.
So
and
just like
through breathing, he would eradicate it. I didn't realize he could localize it.
Yeah. They in the documentary, they actually put I forget what you call it, right? But it
tracking.
It lights up, right? It like colors it, whatever that is. And you could see it injected and then move. There's a lot to Wim Hof. Like there's a dark side to him as well, but like he is, nobody has been able to control their autonomous system like he can. It's pretty wild.
Have either of you, like I'm in this place where I qualified for Boston next year and I'm considering not running in it. Or if I do, considering running it leisurely. I'm this 15 months of this has me seriously considering a different running chapter, doing it more leisurely and for fun as opposed to competitive, trying to break certain goals. Like, have either of you gotten to that point, or do you look at right now? I mean, obviously you're doing the longevity, the how much per day, like
You got to be close to 1,000.
I'll tell you
I'm interested in your take. You still are running some races here and there. I feel like last year's Boston was a PR. You had the PR in the treadmill. Like, where are you guys, and has injuries and health played a role in kind of how you see?
I'm going to ask a bigger question, but for me, I am just enjoying all the aspects right now. Like, that's what I've done. I think I continue to try to find new things in the sport. And I do that because I wonder, you brought up a unique, what's your streak at?
It's coming.
You brought up a unique point. I think there's something to doing measured activities like weightlifting where it's somewhat controlled versus, I mean, I've even noticed this for myself, jumping into sports that you don't do on a regular basis. Like getting into, like starting to play basketball again. I mean, what's your streak?
943 days.
Yeah, so we're getting there. Almost to 1,000. First Dailey to ever hit 1,000. The longest streak any Dailey's ever had, by the way. I think. But like my point is like, out of all my friends, and you probably have more friends in this camp than I do, the sport that I see adults getting hurt in more than anything is soccer. Like dads and people that play pickup soccer are constantly just wrecked. And I'm like, do you think that as you get older, specifically into your 40s, you kind of got to pick and choose, and you either got to pick a sport where you're just moving in one direction and not like, or you end up a complete wreck. Because I don't have problems, but I don't do anything else.
One of the most, like, people, I mean, I know it's a sport that is very popular in the older generations, and I'll go into like 50s and 60s, and there's been more injuries through pickleball. It's unbelievable, but sharp lateral fast movements have to cause more injuries than running in a straight line. I don't know that, but I'm willing to bet the farm on it. Sports that require lateral movements and fast, quick movements is got to be more prone to injuries. Have to be.
I would, damn it. That opens up I don't want to go, we go down this rabbit hole so often. That opens up a funny can of worms. I was at an event with Running USA 2 weeks ago. I may have mentioned it when we were at the lake, but I was sitting with a group of guys, or 4 guys, and we were talking about running. And one of the guys has a son who's going from middle school to high school. And he was talking about that transition and how, his son was running like 8 miles a week or 7 miles a week. And then, now he's holding him accountable and he's making him run more. And then one of the guys was a D1 runner, made the comment. He's like, tell you what, kid who was good on my middle school team, those kids weren't on my D1 team. And I know his line of thinking, because the line of thinking is, oh, you worked the kid too hard. You burned him out in middle school and he didn't make it in college. And then I'm like, hold on. And your comment made me think about this. And maybe I mentioned it to you. Yeah. How many Isaac McClungs do we know that were like college recruited in 7th grade that were good in high school, but like never made it? And it's like, I guess to your point about like, there are just as many, if not more injuries, and maybe it's a participation thing in sports that, I mean, think about, I again, I think this is the conversation I had with you, but like I asked ChatGPT, I said, name me an NBA player besides Mikal Bridges, because he's got the Iron Man streak in the NBA. Who's number 2 on the list? They couldn't tell me. And it's like, no one has played a significant number of games over a season in a row outside of Mikal Bridges. And I'm like,
what's interesting as you're talking, I'm wondering how many people who were runners in high school and middle school have chronic injuries. I think of the Ryan Ernest, like they ran so much younger that their legs are completely trashed now. Like, do you think that translates at all? Do you know runners like JR, like who ran Paige Brunner, who ran in college and high school hard, that's still healthy running now?
It's from what I gather and the people I've been exposed to, it's more mental. It's like they just put so much in
So they
there.
don't run because they're mentally just smoked.
Like
from
Jake
just tired.
until this year was running 40 miles a week. You know, has a very, but it was like
39.9.
39.9. Yeah.
refused.
He's fallen off the cliff this year, but he's dealing with a lot of other stuff, from what I understand. But like, I definitely think that there's something to the both of those components being fresh later. So not having exerted, but I think that's the same thing in business. Like we can't do what we did in business in our 20s and we can, but like it's not there. Like that fire is not there because you just now there's a lot of people that spend their typically in entertainment, they spend their 20s and 30s working at Starbucks because they can't get exposure. And then they hit when they're 38 and they have that fire and they can drive into their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And I think that's where with any sport, I think unfortunately for the major sports, they're so physically demanding. Like you can't find basketball and be a dominator at 38 because you just don't have the lateral quickness and the explosiveness that you do. Where running, at least endurance and distance running, you don't need that same level of explosiveness. You just need to be able to develop your aerobic capacity. So for me, I think that it's more of a mental thing. And here's the other catch is that I think people that run early remember, their body remembers what that felt like. And they go out at 35 and they're looking for that feeling. Not necessarily cardiovascularly, but they're like, I didn't feel this pain here, or this pain here, or this pain here. And it's like, I can't run anymore. I'm done. Because when we were 15, 16, 17, you go out for a run, the only thing that ever hurt was your breathing.
Yeah.
You didn't ever feel anything else. And so you go out to run at 35 for not running for 15 years. And you're like, and I see people, I coach people,
hurts.
You know what I mean? I've worked with people all over the place that they don't know the difference between soreness and pain. And we do because we've gone through it. Like,
that's how I was indoctrinated. Like my first 3 months, or it may have been 6 months, I had ice packs. I had those big old ice things that I wrapped around my knee. Yeah. My knees were so bad until they weren't. And then I got 6 months in and it was like, nope, none of that anymore. It was just like unbelievable how strong they got. But I didn't know any better. I just had to run because I just had to get through it. And I came into it. I feel like running is it like teaches you how to deal with pain.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's all good pain, but maybe that's why we're dealing with the injuries we have. But
no, I mean, so back to your initial point. I don't know. I haven't thought about shutting it down and doing something different yet, but you know, I think Phil is a great example of somebody who, and I think the reason Phil does those things proactively is because if you think back when we were doing the relays, he was always hurt when he was doing like high intensity stuff at Orange Theory. And he has found, and he'll tell you this until he's blue in the face, that like this new 8:39 minute mile, like he's blown away, right? He's like, oh my God, if I'm not doing high intensity. So he's found this different, instead of trying to break his mile PR on the Orange Theory treadmill, 30-second difference. But he's found like, hey, I really enjoy going out and running these 100-mile races and doing 60 to 110 miles a week. And I found a form of running that I enjoy that isn't as hard on my body. So that's the way I would deal with it is I would look for a different...
You go more distance than speed.
Or more trails than roads or, you know, whatever.
Orange Theory has been a good one. Swimming, I'm sure, is a good one, like non-impact. But
I really enjoyed Orange Theory. Yeah, I've gotten back into that, and I honestly, when I'm doing that, I just feel more fit, even though endurance-wise it's not there. Just from a core perspective, legs, there's just a lot more going on there.
It's a huge component, right? I mean, they talk about lean mass. Like those are the two things: VO2 max and lean mass. That like those are the markers for longevity.
Here's another thing I'll say that I've been pleasantly surprised. For me, I've had a lot of fitness anxiety when I've got injuries, and I've been like every minute, every workout I miss or every mile I don't run, I am like a panic stricken that I am going to miss I'm going to lose my fitness and not be able to perform at a certain level at a race. And maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's been a concern. I've been doing for probably 3 to 4 weeks. I was doing incline at Orange Theory. So I wasn't running anything over 6 miles an hour. I was doing everything at 15% incline, and I would walk at 3 or do 4 or 5 or 6 if I was really in and all out. And I just got back doing some of the higher intensity stuff in the last week and a half. I was very surprised, at least for the short duration stuff, how much speed I still
So
have.
that's the new thing, right? So, I mean, you'll remember when I was hurt in January, and I was doing or when I hurt my calf for that 6 weeks, and I was doing the treadmill hiking like 2 years ago, the heat work. But the new thing, so David Roche is kind of the proponent of the heat work and the treadmill hiking. They're not doing treadmill incline threshold. So they'll put the treadmill on like 6% and they'll run 9-minute miles, and they'll do threshold intervals because it's less strenuous on, from a pounding perspective.
Yeah, I've certainly found that.
So it's interesting that you found that in parallel, because they just started doing that in the last year, and some of their athletes have really performed well. So like there's an alternative way to attack it.
It's a way to get your heart rate up too. I found I'm able to get my heart rate up higher because turnover is not as much of an issue.
Yeah.
So it's like I from a cardio perspective, I've certainly felt like I've gotten a better workout. One other thing I was going to ask you guys. Actually, never mind. That covers it. Just that fear of losing fitness. I don't know if you guys have experienced that, but I've been pleasantly surprised.
I'm afraid to stop. Like with this back injury, I probably should, but
yeah,
I find when I get out there. Huh?
Where are you going with it?
I don't know. Sometimes when I think about the broad picture of never stopping, it gets like really big, but then there's times when I know like a trip or a vacation's coming up, get a little bit of anxiety because the transition travel.
What's your
days
why
are
at
hard.
this point?
My
Get to
why
1,000,
is
let's say you get
just
to 5 years, 10 years. Like,
I
what's
just don't. The fact that I make myself do it every day, it gives me it's one of those things that I could make excuses for, and I don't let myself off the hook for.
It's you've got some of the coolest stories where you've had to fit in these runs and like
wild.
the barefoot on the parking garage when Roman was in the hospital, or like
Crazy.
I think that's a really cool purpose. It's like, look, you have to solve problems. I've got to figure this out. My shoes got lost for a month and a half in
Had to run in dress shoes and a swimsuit. I think the other thing as I reflect back, and I've used this as I've talked to certain people, it's like, think about 3 years and think about the number of things that I've had to work through, from injuries to sickness to Europe travel to being on a cliff in the Amalfi Coast, it's 500 steps up, and like there's just been so many different things. And I look back and like probably 30% of the time I didn't want to run. And so to me, it's a reminder that I can do something, and I still believe my favorite quote of all time is doing ordinary things consistently over a long period of time creates extraordinary results. And I saw it with Hadley when she started her running streak last year. She went from 11:30s to 7:30s in 3 months. I like having that feeling of getting something done. And when I go out, it's like, I know I don't want to do it, but it's the days that I don't want to do it and I still do it are just a reminder that I've got to do something, and I've got to make myself, because I'll slide. I don't have to do anything, right? And so it's just a discipline reminder that I'm going to do it whether I want to or not. And in some days it's like taking a shower. It's like no big deal. And it's probably the number one social thing that I do still to this day, whether it's joining Kyle Beal for his 50K, it's running with John Pruse, it's running with Levi or Steven or you guys. It's like, it's such or Reader has been running a lot more. It's like, it's such a social thing for me. It's like when I'm getting ready to run, I've got a list of people I'm texting and be like, you want to go run 3, you want to go do 5, you want to, and so it's a big part of what I do now. I just do it. I don't know when I'll ever stop, but it definitely won't be before 1,000 days.
From a discipline perspective, it sounds like it's your version of making your bed.
It is.
Every day.
Every day, whether I want to or not. And it's a good leg to stand on when I'm telling my kids, you got to do something you don't want to do every day. We've started adding push-ups in, so now it's 20 push-ups with it. So the kids are all doing 20 push-ups, and they don't get their phones, they don't get anything until they do 20 push-ups. And you'd be amazed of how quickly they get to where they can do 20 push-ups versus like, I can't do one. It doesn't take that long. And the difference in athletics is night and day from being able to get a ball up or shoot or hit a volleyball. It's like 20 push-ups a day. That's it. Like, it's non-negotiable. And so I think there's little things like that, and it could be 20 minutes of stretching. It's just like, what are we willing to commit to? If you did the 15 minutes of stretching every day, the stuff you're supposed to, you wouldn't probably have as much injuries, and probably neither would I or neither would you. It's like, what are those things that I'm willing to commit to that are going to make me better? And that's the one that's stuck.
I'm going to hijack. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm going to hijack this for a second because that brings the thought to mind. So sorry for those of you if this is a little off topic. But one thing that I see those types of activities do for people is build their confidence, whether it's for that day, right? Reframing the day and giving you confidence to tackle the day, or building confidence over the long haul, being like, look, I got through all of this craziness, stories that people wouldn't believe. I'm confident that I can tackle any problem. And, that brings me to the kind of the mission statement or the purpose of our race organization, right? And it's to provide people the opportunity to build confidence, to get them out there to do something they didn't think they could ever do. And the Backyard Ultra Prairie on Fire is even more so geared to that because of the way it's structured. It really nudges you. I'm going to go out there and do 4. I'm going to do a yard, and then you meet somebody, and the next thing you know, it's 2 yards, and they're kind of nudging you, and then you forget about it, and you're 4 yards in, and then you're 5. And you leave the prairie with this crazy level of confidence that you didn't have before. Like the guy last year, Uri Bisson, who went from 10K to 100 miles. And all of that was getting nudged in different types of motivation and whatever. So, we're in a situation with this race where it sells out typically 11 months in advance. And it's hard to provide that opportunity to anybody anymore. We try our best to accommodate, but we have capacity issues. And so we've been thinking quite a bit about how to provide that same platform to other people. And we were approached by a company, New Shoe Day. New Shoe Day was founded by a buddy of mine, Casey Krause, I think 7 years ago. And they are essentially Indiana's shoe bank, right? So they were formed through running with the goal of giving back to or providing shoes for youth in Indiana that can't afford them. There are over 250,000 youth in Indiana living in poverty that can't afford shoes. They're still a young company. Casey just took his role full time there. But we talked a couple of years ago, and we had this conversation around what it could look like if Prairie raised money to donate to New Shoe Day. And I think we collectively think big for whatever reason. And I remember feeling very insignificant at the time because they were giving away a couple thousand pairs of shoes a year. I think this year they're set to deploy 10,000. Oh. And at the time, Prairie was small, and it was like, maybe we could donate like 10 pairs or 20 pairs. And I didn't feel like that was enough. Fast forward, now we're in the situation we're in, and we had another conversation, and it was like, he was explaining to me that, this isn't a running thing. This isn't about getting kids running shoes so they can build confidence through running. It's about giving the kid shoes who's got trash bags on his feet in the winter because there are holes in them and he doesn't want to get his feet wet. He told me a story one time. We walked into their warehouse and there's this white box that was decorated. It was not a retail box. We're like, what's that? And he's like, well, we had an experience once with the kid. We were doing a shoe drive, and they were holding onto a box of shoes like it was like the last thing on earth. And they asked the kid, and he's like, this is the first time I've ever gotten shoes in a box. And hearing that story and then realizing we can deliver the same confidence that we're fortunate enough to be able to find through running, whether it's on the prairie or doing a streak or whatever, we can help start these kids, give them an entry level of confidence to tackle the next thing in their life. And so we've launched an effort with them this year where we have partnered with them and are working with our athletes. We are lucky enough, I think you guys know this, to have probably collectively the most talented backyard ultra community in the country. We had more 100-mile finishers last year than any other backyard in the United States. We had more collective miles than any other backyard in the United States. We have one of the top 5 backyard ultra runners, in my opinion, in the U.S. who's going to the World Championships in October. And so we were like, man, can we come up with a way where we could give a pair of shoes out every yard? I mean, last year that would have been 1,700 pairs of shoes. And so we've launched this. And the athletes are going to be reaching out. If you guys remember back in the day when we were younger, March of Dimes, where you do the bowling and you get like a per pin. And so we're going out and we're asking our athletes to help us fundraise and have people sponsor them per yard. And so if an athlete can get to a total sponsorship of $25 a yard, then that will provide a pair of shoes every yard they finish. So if you get 25 people to sponsor you $1 a yard and you do 100 miles, you give 24 pairs of shoes away to kids. And you want to talk about, you've been there and you got to the edge of it. When you hit 100K out there, you don't have any purpose, man. It's just pure pain. And
It's dark,
knowing
dark place.
from like yard 18 to yard 22, man, every yard I finish, a kid gets a pair of shoes. So I'm really stoked about that. Cool. And sorry for hijacking. When you mentioned that, it kind of tied into this whole thing. So we're really excited about it. And, we'll be putting more stuff out on social for people to check out.
That's fantastic.
Great mission, and well needed and well deserved. And that's cool. I hope that works out and you guys give away 1,000 pairs of shoes,
and let's hope 2,000, 3,000. We'll see.
That's wild.
Yeah, the only thing I was gonna maybe bolt on to the back half of that was just injuries with kids. Sometimes I know you've gone through a lot with Hadley. I just had Noah in Mike's office the other day getting looked at, and I know you've had Kay in there. That's one of the downsides of some of the intensity of youth sports, which we've well covered in this podcast, is just the injury. And I had in there, it's the second time he's been in there ever, once with Jacob, once with Mike. And I'm thinking, gosh, I hope he's not getting after it so bad that he's going to have like long-term, I think I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on youth and obviously injuries way more prevalent?
Let me ask you, how much of, I don't know if this is even appropriate, but like how much of Hadley's knee stuff do you think is genetic?
They said none. I know my wife has bad knees. Her and her sister, more bone on bone. They don't have a lot of cartilage. My wife is mid-40s and has had 2 knee replacements. So just to give you...
On each knee, right?
Yeah, she's had both knees completely replaced after several ACL and MCL surgeries and cartilage replacement surgeries and physical therapy. And she still struggles. Like, they were bad for so long that now it's a muscle, and she goes to someone every single week to help with muscle and trying to retrain the right muscles to fire. It's a nightmare. Hadley does not have any, she dislocated her kneecap and back in January, and then again, and she did it again. The problem is once you do it once, it's actually her right knee. It's more prone to happen again. Some people do not have a groove there, so it's easy for it to slide out, but they looked at her x-rays and said her bone structure is good, but for whatever reason, she has more play in there. And so the second time she tore the MPFL, which is the patella tendon, and they went in and put a cadaver, kind of tendon and really tightened that area up. And they actually, funny enough, I was talking to Kyle Chen about it, and his daughter Sydney had the same exact surgery a year ago.
Oh, really?
And said, she's doing tumbling and everything's great. It's a 90% won't happen again. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed. I think for me is if something does happen again, you always worry about when are they going to call it quits, and she's going to unfortunately miss her freshman year of soccer, which we've all been highly, waiting for. But on the flip side, on the plus side, she's going to be able to help coach and really watch a lot, which I think is going to be deadly for her when she gets back and she's able to start working, because she's going to get to see, and soccer is so much of understanding the mechanics of it all. So, God's got a purpose. We're hoping that this is the one. major injury that she has, but I guess you just don't know. And I don't know if they're any more prevalent now than they were. Maybe. I mean, I had obviously lots of injuries growing up.
Yeah, you did.
Mine was the ankle roll. I mean, how many? Gosh, I still got knots on my feet that are look like half golf balls sticking out. I used to roll my ankle all the time. Broke 9 bones, and I know there's still quite a few people that deal with that, and they still make it. So I don't know how much that's actually shifted.
I agree. I don't think, I almost wonder if there's something to the right amount of exposure early enough. I mean, like, has he been in there for serious stuff?
No.
Yeah.
Just like aches and pains and nagging stuff that I know as I've run, and a lot of this is just getting older, but it's just something in the back of your head. And, certain people probably that aren't as intense with their kids in youth sports are probably, it would be a storyline, right? Like, so no, it's been not serious stuff. Not something that I'm like seriously concerned about, because he's not doing weightlifting or any sort of crazy things in middle school. He's more active and doing more training and more physically demanding stuff.
I think it's better for him, man. And I'll say that because I've seen, so in Kay's team, there of the top 5 girls on the cross country team, 4 of them were in boots. She's the only one not in a boot. And most of these are growth related issues.
Stress fractures.
Stress reactions, stress fractures, Seaver's disease. There's a girl that runs with her who's a couple years younger who's got Osgood-Schlatters. And I believe, and this may be totally anecdotal, that because she was exposed to a little bit more, with like her mile streak for 2 years, just enough. We talked a prior episode about like exposure therapy, right? Like just enough of that adversity every day for a long period of time that she doesn't experience. She's been into to Mike maybe 3 times.
Okay.
Kennedy's been in there once or twice. But I think for sports like soccer and like with Sydney and then with Kennedy, who's been there a couple of times, you're more liable to have freak accidents because it's just so much more intense and you're cutting like that. But in a sport like running, she's the one, knock on wood, that hasn't had anything serious yet. And I think it has something to do with the fact that over time she's been exposed a little bit more versus the other people.
Yeah.
It's great.
No, that's it's been really insightful. I love the what's it called? What's the company again on the shoes?
New Shoe Day.
New Shoe Day. It's going to be exciting for those of you that are going to be at the Prairie. I'm excited to be in a serving role. I am not going to run this year, especially with the current injury I have. So excited to see you guys out there. Hopefully you guys learned something, on the recovery side, and look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.